Good evening. Welcome to yet another live stream from in 28 minutes. Today we have with us Prashanth. As you all know, there are a lot of changes that are happening in the industry with cloud, DevOps, machine learning, and a lot of other things happening. And that's where we thought we'll bring you perspectives from different people, different learners, different experts who are doing wonderful jobs in their respective careers. And that's where we have Prashanth with us today. Uh, Prashanth, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ranga. Thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to have you meet online. I'm really happy to have you personally here with me. So, thank you very much for inviting me to this show. Thank you very much.
Happy to be here. Uh, Prashanth, shall we start with an introduction of yours?
Sure. So, my name is Prashanth. I'm basically an IT professional since 11 years now. And when I started my career, I started as an aspirant to as a software engineer, but I could not do that because I got a job as a Citrix administrator, basically an admin job. But I want
Hmm.
to head my path as a real developer or software engineer, or where the technology aspirant should go about. But when I started working in my first company, I always thought of doing something very special, which is in line with the technology. And since then I started working on myself. Slowly I learned few things. So you started reading some books, and slowly I moved to the infrastructure side. So my first promotion was from administrator to infrastructure consultant, and since then it's been 10 years now. I've been working as an infrastructure consultant, and it's been like 7 years journey now. I have been into the cloud, and I have like a lot of
Okay.
exposure to the cloud. I have worked on various clouds like Azure, AWS, GCP, and IBM Cloud as well. And thanks to you, where I got opportunity to get some ideas by seeing your courses and learning some more uh, methods on how to use those services, and in a real time scenarios. So you were also a great help in the latest era from 2018 2019. This is an era where we are modernizing ourselves, not only the work, not only the IT sector, but we are also modernizing our lives. So your hand has been a really important one to improve our career and professional path. So thanks to you, and that's all about me.
Okay. Glad to hear that, Prashant. We are really delighted that you're playing a role in helping you build your careers, right? So that's something we are really, really happy to be part of. Um, Prashant, like you said, you started your journey with the cloud a few years back, right?
Right,
So
right.
how was this journey? Where did you start? What are the things you have done? Where you are right now? And what are the things that you would want to learn going forward? I think a lot of
So
questions in there.
when so I was like 25 years old, and I was very new to the industry. I had no idea what cloud was. I only worked on traditional infrastructure. I just knew few servers, Hyper-V servers, VMware servers, and so on. So when I understood what is cloud slowly, I developed interest in public clouds. So my first cloud
Hmm.
was AWS cloud, where I worked for around 6 months to 8 months. So I worked with a small client, with a small team. I understood that these things are developing and at a rapid pace. So I understood that, I sensed that this is a technology which will be moving ahead. So I started learning slowly. I started going through the documents. I started. So I am the person who have seen the classic portal of every cloud.
Okay.
So you know, so from there I started my cloud journey. So that was my first cloud.
Okay. Okay. So, like, which cloud did you start with, and like, what were the first few things you have done with it, and which services did you play with? Do you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. So my first cloud was AWS, where I worked for a few months. So I was a part of a migration team. As a junior, I had nothing much to do, but I was a part of a monitoring team where I used to monitor all the services, all the resources which were hosted and deployed by the architects and the admins. But later on, when I started learning, I moved to Azure. So that was
Hmm.
the breakthrough where I got an opportunity to learn much more about the cloud. So when I moved to Azure, I started as a cloud engineer and then moved as an architect. So I have been
Okay.
performing as a cloud architect since 6.5 years now, and
Cool.
I have handled multiple clients, designed multiple architectures, and given a lot of solutions to more than 20 clients as of now. And the services, like a lot of services I've used, like application gateways, load balancers, and firewalls, giving them the DNZ architectures. So whatever they need, end-to-end solutions I give them. So that
Okay.
was my first encounter with Azure cloud.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great to hear. Prashant, just let's say somebody is new and they are starting with the cloud today. One of the most frequently asked questions from learners is, hey, Ranga, which cloud should you start with? AWS, Azure, Google Cloud? Which one do you want to start with? Like, what's your recommendation there?
My recommendation would be not to worry about anything. If you want to come into the cloud, the era has started already to learn multi-cloud, because the cloud, the all the public cloud vendors are the same. Let it be AWS, let it be Azure, or GCP or IBM, all are absolutely same. Yes, the market share would be a little bit different. It depends on the type of services the vendors provide. But the concepts, the services which the vendors provide are almost the same. So the most important thing which practitioner should learn is the concept of the cloud, the services where they are used and how to use them, and the knowledge
Right.
about the traditional deployment and the latest modernized deployment. So those concepts one should learn, and then they should move ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what you're suggesting is basically that I mean, all the clouds that are out there are very, very
Right,
similar in
right,
structure. There might
right.
be some, like there might be small fundamental differences, but for big part, it's just renaming of services. You'll call it X in one cloud, you'll probably call it Y in another cloud. And like I think one of the other points you're trying to make is also that once you learn other one cloud, learning the other cloud becomes very, very easy. So
Absolutely,
like
yes.
so when you're starting off, right? So I think it's better to start with any of the clouds, right? AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, or any of these are good ones to pick up as long as you are an expert at it, right? It's not sufficient if you have uh, like not insufficient knowledge. You should pick up one cloud, probably become an expert at it, and then maybe slowly you can start your journey towards multi-cloud. Is that how you see it?
Absolutely. Absolutely, exactly. So it does make sense, because we cannot learn all the clouds together. Yes, you
Right.
can start learning and you can start comparing when you keep learning, but I would advise to learn the entire cloud services. If you choose, for example, Azure, you should learn entire services, whatever the services are being used on a daily basis, what clients are asking, what kind of solutions and architectures are being deployed, what kind of blueprints are already there. So once you start studying those, once you know what is happening in the market, then you should move on with other clouds and then grab the knowledge.
Awesome, awesome. So that's one part, right? So you'd want to start with one of the clouds and start your learning journey.
Exactly,
So
yes.
like what's the way you? Let's say I picked up to learn AWS or I picked up to learn Azure. So what's the
Mhm.
next step forward? How do you like? Do you think certifications is a way to go forward, or do you want to deploy a few applications and test? Like, what's the approach that you would recommend to learn cloud?
Yeah, the best way to learn, to gain the knowledge, is to have certifications, because uh, I also thought, yeah, certificate is just a piece of paper and it doesn't need it doesn't match any knowledge or so. But what I understood is, when you go in a roadmap of certification, you understand the sequence of learning. You understand the fundamentals first and then go bit by bit. Yes, there are not all services which are covered in the certifications, but the important and the basic services are all covered in the certification. So once you do the certification, you get confidence. You
Right.
know that yes, you understand these services, where it can be used and how it has to be deployed, what kind of services can be used in a traditional and cloud environment, what kind of landscape can be designed with these services. So you understand when you do the certifications, and the questions are absolutely distributed. So you get an interim knowledge on what is happening in the market. So that's very important to have a certification in this era. So that's what keeping that in mind, I have done certifications in all the clouds which are there in
Right.
the market. So once you are done with the certification, I would advise you to go a step ahead, like learn more services which are third party services in any of the cloud vendor, or
Absolutely.
learn something like artificial intelligence, machine learning. So go in that path. So because
Right.
yeah, it helps you to understand and deep dive the services which you have already learned in the certification. That's what I feel.
Awesome, awesome. That's cool. So what you are basically saying is, uh, like, start with a certification so that you get a wide perspective. When I talk
Right,
to a lot
right,
of people who have a lot of experience, even with AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, some of them tell me that uh, their work restricts them to specific areas. Right? I've met people who have just worked on ECS, Elastic Container Service, in
right,
AWS for 5 years. Right? So, but if you go beyond ECS, they have limited knowledge, and that's where I think certifications play a crucial role. Right? It would give you
exactly.
a wider perspective. It's not
Right,
just restricted to specific things. And like, as you grow in your career, as you become maybe a designer, a architect, it's
right,
good to have a wider perspective. And like, once you are good at one cloud, once you do a few certifications, probably you can start your journey towards other clouds as well. So
exactly.
is that
Yes,
a right summary?
yes, that's the absolutely right summary which I meant.
Okay, perfect, perfect, Prashant. That's great. I like, now that we talked generically about this, right? So, how was your like certification journey in specific? Like, which certifications did you start with? Uh, and I see that you have multiple certifications on multiple clouds. So, how did you go from one cloud to other? Like, how was this entire journey like?
Right. So, as I said, I started my cloud journey 7 years ago, but I did not bother about certifications back then.
Hmm.
So it was just 2018. I started to understand that I have limited knowledge on the cloud. Being a cloud
Okay.
architect, I wanted to understand the cloud client's perspective. They wanted to have. I understood the main agenda of the clients, because they wanted to have some costing. Preferences. They wanted to have some services which are already automated in the cloud. So
Hmm.
I started learning there. I got into Udemy. I started getting some courses in the Udemy, and then started the journey of certification. So my first certification was AWS, and then I moved to Azure 300, Azure 300, 301. Then I did GCP professional cloud architect. I did cloud digital leader. I also did
Okay.
Aviatrix multi-cloud network associate, and I
Okay.
kept on learning. So
Okay.
these certifications helped me to compare the cloud vendors, and also to give the best solutions with respect to cost and the service provided by the cloud vendors.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, yeah, having an understanding of multiple clouds does make it easy as well.
Right,
A lot of times you can easily compare the different solutions, and also somehow it gives you a big picture. I mean, when you learn
exactly,
one cloud, you get specific amount of knowledge, but when you
right,
start looking at other clouds, you'd start generalizing solutions. You'd see, okay,
exactly,
probably this is exactly the same as something there, or this is very, very similar to something which we learned earlier. Or
right.
probably you might find that, okay, one cloud vendor is doing this really, really well, and somebody else is not doing any other way. So, Prashant, I mean, let's take a hypothetical scenario, right? So, client comes to you and says, okay, this is what I want. How do you decide? How do you go about deciding which cloud to use, which service to use? Like, do you have a specific process towards that?
Well, when the client comes to me, they do not give me any free hand to choose any cloud, because
Okay.
they they ask me,
Okay.
they just give me the cost, and I list down
Okay.
all the services. And
Right.
for example, if they give me 4 5 services, I list down them and I give them the cost, and I give them the option of choosing the clouds between them. For example, if they give me some 10 services, I list them out, do the cost estimation and give it to them, and then I take the leverage of sitting back and get the options from them. So
Okay.
once they get some clarity and get the idea on solutions, they go ahead with the cloud, and then I do the solution. That's how.
Okay. I think determining the cost of a solution in cloud is one of the most difficult things, right? So, do you frequently get these estimates right? Like I found it really, really challenging to get a cost estimate right on the cloud.
Yes, exactly. It is a very stringent task. If you have a very big landscape or a very big estate, then it becomes a very big hassle to have the cost estimation, especially if you're working on multiple clouds. So what I do is, I handle a small team and I give them mentorship, like how you do to the world. So I work with them. I keep them updated on what is happening, because there are some public preview services, some costs get
Right.
changed day to day basis. So I also keep
Right.
I have some counterparts in the Microsoft and AWS and GCP as well. So I get some updates, I talk to them, what is the best solution, what is the best service, what is the best pricing I would get, and I give them the number of months or number of years I would be using these services, and get the right estimate from the vendors itself.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this
Cool.
becomes like second line defense. First line of defense becomes from the architect, and the second line of defense comes from the vendor itself.
Okay. Makes sense. Perfect. So the first step is to design a solution, choose the right services based on the needs, and then you would get to costing and like discussions around it to ensure that you get the right, like probably. I mean, I
Right.
guess it's almost impossible to get the costing right, but yeah,
Right.
some kind of a estimate, right?
Yes. 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 Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool. So, Prashant, like, where do you see the industry going forward? Like, there are a lot of things that are happening, right? So, like, in the last few years, we have cloud, DevOps, and machine learning, artificial intelligence, uh, and there are a lot more things that are going to come as well.
Exactly.
So, where do you see uh, the industry going forward, and how do you think learners can adapt to it?
I feel that the cloud is the future, and
Okay,
now we are playing with the virtual machines, but the future is the containerization of the applications. So this will
okay,
come as a near future, and
right,
future of the IT industry falls under the artificial intelligence, machine learning, and also the robotics, and also the robotic process automation, which we have like Blue Prism, RPA bots. So these bots will do the work of the humans, like we you do just the automation. So this automation engineers will be the future of IT, is what I see.
okay, okay. So
Right.
let's not paint the doomsday picture right now. Guys, your
Right.
jobs are safe. So don't worry about your jobs. It's all about
Yeah.
getting good at it, right? It's all about,
Yes.
for me, whenever I think about automation, AI, machine learning, stealing jobs, a lot of times people get nervous. The way I would actually rather think is if you are an expert, if you really get really, really good at something, any of the things that we are talking about, right? Cloud, DevOps, AI, ML, if you are in the top 5% of any of these fields, you have a wonderful career ahead of you and you would be
Exactly.
able to do wonderful things, right? So that's the best perspective. Uh, we can look at things like instead of getting nervous that somebody is going to steal our jobs, it's more of an opportunity. That's I guess, the best way to see it. What's your
Exactly.
opinion?
Exactly, Ranga. You rightly said. The best thing is to learn, keep on learning new technologies, understand from the heart, and enjoy it. You're not
Yeah,
only learning, you should start enjoying it. We should modernize the technology. We should also modernize ourselves. Gone are those days when we do the micromanagement and do some work and go home and sleep. It is an era of invention, inventing yourself, have some passion towards the technology, and enjoy yourself. That's
right.
more important.
Yeah, I think you also mentioned a couple of things which are very, very important earlier as well, right? Containers, container orchestration.
Yes,
So I
yes,
think, yeah, with microservices, like deployment became complex, and with containers, even though I have multiple different kinds of microservices developed in different languages, I can deploy them the same way with containers. And that's where container orchestration also plays a very, very crucial role. So you would be able to manage multiple microservices much more easily. So do you see that happening in your specific client areas as well? So use of adoption of Docker, Kubernetes. Like I think like it's been happening for the last few years, and I think it's only going to grow in the next few years. Is that what you see as well?
Yes, Ranga, even I feel that it has been growing since years, and in 2020 and 21, people are opting for containers because it is less in maintenance, easy to deploy. You can deploy it on the fly, but
Exactly.
we are still lacking with the skills. There is huge requirement in the industry. Clients are looking for skillful people outside, so we need some people who can architect, who can manage these containers, who can deploy these containers and work with these containers, monitor these, automate these. So there is a very great future when we talk about containers. So I think this is the future. So we will be moving from virtual machines to containers very soon in the near future is what I feel.
Okay. Okay. Cool. And also, like I think Kubernetes is also has become the default container orchestration solutions. And
Yes.
earlier, like creating a Kubernetes cluster was a big challenge, but I think with the emergence of cloud in the last few years, I think creating a Kubernetes cluster is not. I mean, it's not as challenging. It's still challenging, but it's not as challenging as it was before.
Yeah, exactly. As you said, Kubernetes is everywhere. It's now, now it is being partnering with the OpenShift as well. So OpenShift is also coming up. So everything is getting paired. It is not that. So the options have become wide. So it is not that if you know only one thing, you get the chance to learn other thing as well because everything is interlinked.
Right.
So it is an advantage for our for learners like us. If you are in the cloud, then you will definitely get an opportunity to work with a DevOps team. Then you start learning slowly, so you
Right.
can develop some interest and start learning by your own. So that is a great advantage.
Right. So what you're basically saying is that once you start with something, the next steps become easier. So once you start learning
Easier.
the cloud, it becomes easy to learn Docker or Kubernetes. Once you
Exactly.
understand those, it becomes easier to learn further other things about DevOps. Like, for example,
Exactly.
if you want to learn infrastructure as code or continuous integration, all those things become much more easier to learn as well.
Right. Yes.
Perfect, Prashant. Uh, Prashant, I think it was like uh, so. I think like if you look at anybody who's doing a programming career right now, Java, Python, right. So if you look at the options which are out there, uh, probably I think cloud, DevOps, AI, ML, robotics, as you were talking about. So these would be the high level options, right? Do you have a preference among these? Do you have a recommendation of uh, something that uh, like a learner should shoot for? Let's consider a beginner, for example.
Okay. So for a beginner, it's an open playground. So for a beginner can choose anything. He can choose cloud. He
Mhm.
can start with DevOps also. But I
Right,
would say whatever you learn, you should start with the basics. Because as I said,
right,
everything is interlinked. You cannot choose IoT without knowing cloud. You cannot choose DevOps without having the minimum basics of traditional infrastructure and modern infrastructure. So everything is interlinked. So the basics are very important. You should know from where it should start. You should know the roadmap where it is starting. So for beginners, I would suggest them to start with the cloud because it is growing rapidly. So you can
right.
choose any cloud. You can start writing some fundamental certifications and start keep on learning day by day. So I think cloud has a greater future. And once you start learning, everything will come in place, and the roadmap will come into the picture once you start learning. So the
I,
beginning of the learning is important.
yeah, I think that's a great thing, right? So once you are good at programming, probably the first thing that you'd want to do is to learn the cloud, because it might also make learning other things very simple, as you say. For
Very
example, if
simple.
you
Yes.
want to do machine learning, there are like if you're good at cloud, uh, using machine learning becomes very easy because a lot
Very
of services are provided by the cloud providers as well. Or
exactly.
as
Yes.
you say, IoT also becomes easier if you know the cloud. Even things
Right.
like DevOps, right? Using Docker, Kubernetes, or any of the continuous integration, continuous deployment, or infrastructure as code. All those become really, really easy once you understand the cloud.
Exactly. Yes.
Awesome, awesome. That's cool. Uh, Prashant, I think we will now reverse the roles. So
Mhm.
it's now your turn to ask your questions to me. Let's go. Let's get started with that.
Sure. So Ranga, my question to you is, from where do you get inspiration? So what has inspired you to teach? So how did you come to Udemy? How did you start teaching? How did you become a mentor? And I'll come to the second question once you answer this.
Okay, cool. So from I think from a long while I had a passion for teaching. I knew that I had a way of making things really simple. Even very very complex things, I can explain it in such a way that they are simple. So that's one thing I've realized over my like 15 years in the IT industry. And the second thing I realized is there is a specific need or lack of really good training content. So I'm talking about like this is like going 5 to 10 years back, right? So going at that particular point in time, whatever content out was out there, I did not feel it was good enough. Especially like I was focused on more on IT services, Indian learners, and I did not like the solutions which were there. Like if you wanted to learn Spring or Spring Boot or Maven, I did not like the solutions which were out there. So the preferred option for me for was books, uh, but a lot of people struggle to read from books, right? So I thought there was a gap, right? A lot of like early programmers who I was working with, they were struggling to learn something. Like there was nothing which helps them to learn in a very very simple, very hands-on way. And that's where
Right.
like during my career I was also building a few like few simple examples. Like whenever I was working in a project, if there is a new developer, to help them, what we used to do is to create simple prototypes. Like okay, this is step one, step two, step three. And that's kind of where I discovered okay, there is a need for this as well. So uh, I had a passion for teaching. I saw that there was a need for it in the small sphere that I was working in. And that's where I thought okay, let's try and see how it would work if I take this further and put some content out on YouTube. And that's where I
Right.
thought, okay, let's go and create some content. I mean, one of the areas I was deeply focusing on at that particular point in time was code quality, like readability
Mhm.
of code, four principles of simple design, making sure that uh, unit tests are written, following test driven development, uh, using Sonar to evaluate and making sure that the code adheres to all those rules. So those were some of the things I was focusing on at that particular point in time. I thought, okay, I'm working on this, so let's create some content on it on YouTube on those things. So that's where the journey started. So it was initially, I knew something, there was not sufficient material available. Let's go and do something to fix that. So let's go and create content on YouTube. That's where it started. And after creating content on YouTube for certain amount of time, I realized uh, like we were reaching like good amount of people because YouTube gives you wider audience. But one thing I saw was I with just the income that comes from YouTube, I cannot become a full time instructor. So I thought, okay, doing it for 1 2 hours a day is not good enough. I wanted to be a full time instructor, and that's where I was searching for platforms which gives me enough scope to become a full time instructor. So I tried a lot of different platforms at that particular point in time, and somehow Udemy worked. So out of the blue, I found Udemy. I created a couple of courses out there. They did really, really well. And yeah, that's where it started. And from then on, the only goal I set myself was, okay, if a Java developer, I mean, the initial goal was focused on Java developer. So when I quit my job in 2016, my goal was, okay, anything Java developer wants to learn, not anything, like anything which Java developers make use of 80% of the time, I would want to have a course around that. That was the initial goal. So that's where we created courses on Spring, Spring Boot, microservices, APIs, full stack development. All those courses came from there. And in the last couple of years, we started expanding to other things as well. So that's kind of the crux of the entire story.
Super fantastic, Ranga. Really great. Really amazing. A round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Ranga, it's already proven that you are an amazing mentor. But who is your mentor? How do you learn? How from where do you get time? Because see, as I said, I am more restricted towards cloud DevOps areas. But you have variety of courses. You have knowledge in variety of areas. So from where do you learn these things? Do you go through the raw documentations, or do you have a mentor, or there is a team who helps you? How do you do this, and how do you manage your 24 hours?
Yeah, it's a very very difficult thing to keep learning. I think initially for me creating courses was very easy because I had 15 years of experience working in the industry. So if I had to create a Spring Boot or Maven or JUnit or Mockito or any of those courses, it was very easy. I just need to go there, okay, think, okay, design an example, put it out there. So that was easy. But I think over the last couple of years, as we expand the range of courses, as I expanded my range out to DevOps and multiple clouds, it became much more bigger challenge. And that's where like I have a small team right now. So I have a couple of mentors for myself. I would call them actually partners, mentors, whatever you'd want to call them. That's fine. So these guys are the guys who are actually behind the screens. These are the guys who are actually doing consulting and a lot of different engagements across the world with different customers. And those are the guys who actually help me learn the cloud, learn DevOps, uh, bring the real world expertise, right? So one of the most important things that in 28 minutes courses are popular for is the hands-on experience and the real-world project experience that you would get. And we did not want to lose out on that as we venture into other areas, right? So that's where we brought in real experts. Like those are the guys who mentor me, who teach me, who decide, okay, what should we teach as part of a course to ensure that somebody who does the course has that real world experience. It's not sufficient if you learn something. You need to have
Yeah,
the feel for how it's used in the real project. So
exactly.
yeah, my team really helps. And learning also is not a it's more of a habit, right? It's like as you continuously learn, you become efficient at doing the same thing again and again. So for a lot of people, they have other things to do other than learning, but for me learning is the only thing. So I learn and create content. So like now I'm getting good at it, right? So I know what process works for me. For me books are the best thing. So other
Yeah.
than the people who help me learn, like I read a number of books. Like if I'm creating a course, probably I would have read 3 or 4 minimum, and for some topics maybe like even 10 books. So books, number one. Number two is YouTube. I like YouTube is a very very difficult place to find good content. There's a lot of content on good YouTube, a lot of it very bad, but there is some amazing content out there as well. So if you know where to go in YouTube and find the right content, that's a great place to start learning as well. And obviously, the third place I would look at is like competitors. Like there are a lot of other guys who are creating courses, amazing courses as well. Not like it's not just me creating courses, right? So there are tons of other guys who are creating courses. I learn from all of them. So it's basically I look at them, see what they do, what are the best things that I can do, and take it in my approach. So yeah, those are kind of the three places where I look for when I want to learn something.
Amazing, Ranga. Amazing. Perfect. Superb. So, one question I had in my mind. So, as you said, you learn, and so to create one content and upload it in your Udemy and have that in place. So, how much time do you take?
Yeah, I think the time to create a course is varies drastically from one course to another. So
Hmm.
it depends on the specific topic. It also depends on the duration of the course, right? So let's just say if it's an easy topic, right? So for example, let's say I'm creating a course on unit testing.
Hmm.
The first thing I would try and decide is okay, let's pick up Docker. That's kind of better example, right? So if I'm creating a course on Docker, probably I would actually start with identifying what are the real world use cases where Docker is used in projects? What are the 80% use cases where Docker is used? And that's the thing we'll start with. So these are the use cases which we would want to cover. So that's the one. That's the starting point. And around that, we would start building the theoretical concepts. For me, theoretical concepts are not really the crux. The crux is what you want to be able to do with Docker, right?
Okay.
So I decide that first, and then I build the theory concepts around the use cases. So to explain this use case, I would need to explain all these theoretical concepts. To explain this, I would need all the theory around this. So that's how we build the story. For me, it's like a movie. Like I don't see it as a course. It's more like a movie where, like by the end of it, we would want everybody to be really good at using something in a project, right? So yeah. So how do I enable that? Is by identifying the right use cases and then helping them implement those use cases over the duration of the course. That's why, like you would see that our introductions, like there would not be any presentations or anything. Like probably some of the cloud certification courses will have presentations, but other than that, most of our courses would be really hands-on. I mean, a Docker course would be starting with probably a quick introduction, a quick demo of what you can do with Docker. So that's what would be the first video, and probably after that would be slowly building up. Like probably we would use a already present container. We will try and deploy it, and then we'll learn how to create a container. What are the best practices? So that's kind of how I look at it. You start with the use cases and then build the course out.
So, Ranga, so you, for example, if you build a course, okay, and let's take an example of GCP Cloud Digital Leader. So,
Right.
how do you keep yourself updated? For example, you have updated something in Udemy, and that course gets updated, or some services are decommissioned, or something gets updated. So, how do you keep up the pace? How do you keep yourself updated? There should be some channel which keeps on informing you, because as a mentor you need to keep the pace up, you need to keep yourself updated, keep the learners updated. So how do you
Absolutely.
keep that staging,
Right. So,
Ranga?
Prashant,
That's
yeah,
the question.
yeah, that's actually one of the most important challenges that I'm facing today. Right. So today we have about 50 courses. If you look at them, it's wide range of areas, right? So Spring Boot, Java, like Python, automation testing. Then we have courses on full stack development, DevOps, all the clouds. So like keeping updated with all the things which are happening in here is a very, very big challenge. And that's
Right.
uh, that that takes away a lot of our time as well. Uh, and it's also very, very important because from a learner perspective, having an updated course is really, really, really important. So what we do is actually there are specific areas which I am an expert, I'm like 100% confident on, and those areas I completely own. So I am registered on, let's say for example, Spring Boot, Google Cloud. So for all these I'm registered on, like all the update notifications which come on those sites, right? So whenever there's a Google Cloud update, I get an email kind of. Whenever there's a Spring Boot update, I get an email, and that's how I keep getting update. I mean, that's how I keep updated on what's happening. My team also helps me there. So if there is a
Okay.
new change in Docker, Kubernetes, or any of the other clouds, we have team members who are dedicated to monitor that and like yeah, identify the updates that we need to make in the changes. In addition to this, I think learners themselves are much more updated than some of the learners, right? So if you look at uh, some of these courses, these are taken by 10,000 or 20,000 people, and
Right.
out of the 20,000, there are some folks who are really, really good. I mean, who probably know that subject much better than me. Those guys are also helping us. So a lot of these guys post questions in the Q&A, and it becomes some kind of notification for us to identify, okay, hey, Ranga, you have been sleeping until now. There's a change. Go ahead and update the course for it. So yeah, it's kind of a mix. So we kind of get notifications directly from the source for most of the things. If we miss, if we are lazy on something, we do get updates from the learners themselves as well. So both, it's both ways.
Okay, great, Ranga, perfect. So one last question from me. On behalf of myself and all other mentees, we wanted to ask, what does our celebrity mentor do apart from this technology? What is his passion? What drives him? What is he passionate about
Okay.
apart from
Uh,
technology?
th- Thank you. Yeah, I think for me, helping others learn, it was a main driver, uh, was one of the most important drivers, right? That's why I started this. Other than that, uh, like obviously, as with everybody, family is very, very important, right? So try to spend a lot of time with my family. Uh, Leaving these aside, I think for me, the most important hobby that I have is trekking. So I do trek a lot. Before COVID, like I used to trek every 6 months. Like I go to Himalayas or Europe or wherever I would want to do a trek. I just go there, spend like about 10 to 15 days, completely disconnected from technology.
There are some
Probably a lot of
videos
places.
from the mountains as well. I have seen some videos of yours from the mountain.
Exactly. So yeah, it's I like to completely disconnect like from all the things which happen around us, right? So yeah, that's kind of one of the most important hobbies that I have. I feel that's something which helped me a lot, because those days which I disconnect, I mean, right now we are living in a very connected world, right? So you are getting notifications left, right, and center. Your concentration is not there, and that's where I feel uh, like my habit of trekking really, really helps. So it helps me disconnect uh, at least for a few days from everything. Uh, like the video you would have seen was from one of my initial treks. Uh, After that, I actually even decided not to talk about technology on the treks as well. So it's like complete disconnect.
Fantastic, Ranga. So I think I'm done with my questions. The last statement or last thing which I wanted to say you is we all are blessed to have you as our mentor in this current era, in this current world. People like you are very much needed to grow in their professional career. So thank you very much, Ranga, and keep going on, and may you succeed in your life, and keep helping us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Prashant. Actually, learners like you are the reason why I'm able to lead the life the way I would want today, right? So it's the love from you which enables me to succeed uh, in what I want to do today. Thanks a lot for that as well. Thank you for taking the time out to be here, Prashant. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Ranga. Thanks for having me here. Thank you very much.